A child stands at the edge of a decision and needs guidance. Another has crossed a boundary and needs correction. Another has failed, feels ashamed, and needs reassurance that failure is not the end. Another senses danger but does not yet possess the wisdom or strength to protect himself. In each moment, the word Father may be spoken, written, or claimed. But listen carefully. The title cannot guide. The title cannot correct. The title cannot reassure. The title cannot protect. A name can identify a relationship, but only responsibility can serve the child. Write this down. Fatherhood is responsibility made visible through consistent action. I want to repeat it. Fatherhood is not validated by announcement alone. It becomes effective when responsibility is repeatedly carried. Biology may establish a fact. A family may confer a name. Society may recognize a position. But the child encounters fatherhood through function, through what is done, what is taught, what is guarded, what is supplied, and what is prepared for the future. This is not an invitation to condemnation. It is an invitation to examination. If you are a father, this concerns your conduct. If you expect to become a father, this concerns your preparation. If you mentor, teach, coach, guide, or influence the young, this concerns the quality of what you transfer. And if you are wounded by absence, neglect, inconsistency, or silence, do not leave the room emotionally. Your pain is not proof that you are disqualified. It is evidence that these responsibilities matter. A supplied Munroe global teaching on fatherhood treated effective fathering as foundational to society and had received 45,383 views. That number does not prove the principle. Popularity cannot establish truth, but it does reveal the reach of the concern. People understand that when fathering fails repeatedly in private, the consequences do not remain private. They travel through homes, choices, relationships, and generations. So we are going to remove the fog. We will examine 7 functions: presence, identity, instruction, discipline, provision, protection, and preparation. Not 7 decorations. 7 responsibilities. Each one can be named. Each one can be observed. Each one can be practiced, reviewed, and improved. That means even the person who never received a healthy model can learn to build a healthier pattern. Do not ask only, do I hold the title? Ask, what does the child consistently experience? Because the weight of the word Father is carried in action. And if this word is to carry real weight, what precisely must fatherhood mean? Then let us define the terms. Because confusion grows when different things are treated as though they are the same. Fathering is the sustained performance of responsibilities that contribute to a child's belonging, formation, safety, provision, and readiness for life. Notice the word sustained. An occasional gesture may be meaningful, but fathering is not an occasional event. It is a pattern of service made dependable over time. There are 4 categories we must distinguish. First, biological connection identifies origin. It answers, from whom did this child come? Second, title identifies a recognized relationship. It answers, what is this person called in relation to the child? Third, function identifies the work required by that relationship. It answers what responsibilities must be carried. Fourth, effectiveness describes how faithfully that work is performed. It answers, can the child depend on the responsibility being fulfilled? Origin is not title. Title is not function. Function is not automatically effectiveness. Each category matters, but none should be used to conceal the neglect of another. Biology deserves honor because origin matters. Yet origin cannot substitute for service. A name may establish recognition, but repeated conduct establishes credibility. Consider any office. A person may possess the title while neglecting the job description. The sign may be on the door. The name may be on the document. The position may be publicly acknowledged. But occupying the office does not complete its duties. The work must still be done. In the same way, fatherhood is an office of service, and its credibility is measured through performed responsibilities. This also clarifies the place of mentors, teachers, coaches, relatives, restorative caregivers, and other responsible adults. They do not need to invent a biological connection or erase an existing one. They must not falsely claim what is not theirs, but they can carry fathering functions, offering dependable guidance, reinforcing belonging, supplying wisdom, establishing appropriate boundaries, recognizing danger, and preparing a young person for responsible living. Function can be shared without relationships being confused. Now bring the definition home. Ask yourself a behavioral question. What dependable benefit reaches a child's life because I carry this responsibility? Not what do I intend. Not what do I occasionally announce. What consistently arrives? Does the child receive greater stability, clearer direction, wiser correction, meaningful support, safer boundaries, and stronger preparation because I am involved? That question is not a weapon for shame. It is an instrument for growth. If you lacked a healthy model, you are not being asked to imitate what you never saw. A function can be defined. Once defined, it can be learned. Once learned, it can be practiced. Once practiced, it can be reviewed. Once reviewed, it can be improved. The past may explain your starting point, but it does not have to dictate your pattern. So the standard is clear. A relationship may confer the name, but repeated responsibility reveals whether the work is being done. And the first evidence that this office is functioning is simple. When the child reaches for you, are you dependably present? Presence is not merely being in the building. A person can occupy the same room and remain unreachable. Presence means reliable availability, attentive engagement, and commitments that are kept. It tells the child through repeated conduct, you can reach me, and when you reach me, I will not treat your life as an interruption. Notice the order. Availability comes before influence. If guidance cannot find an open door, it cannot consistently shape a life. If every attempt to speak is dismissed, delayed, mocked, or met with distraction, the child learns that access exists in theory, but not in practice. Physical proximity is not enough. Attention must arrive with it. So test the function. Do you know what currently concerns the child? Not what concerned the child 6 months ago, what is pressing now. Can the child finish a sentence before you deliver a verdict? Do you listen without immediately minimizing what seems small to you? When you promise to appear, do you appear? Have you created recurring time that does not depend upon convenience, mood, or crisis? Write this down. Dependable time makes love believable. It does not require constant availability. No responsible adult can abandon every other duty. It requires understandable access and trustworthy rhythm. The child should know when conversation can happen, when shared time will return, and whether your word about tomorrow can be trusted today. A recurring meal, a regular conversation, a scheduled activity, or a consistent check-in may look ordinary. That is precisely why it matters. Reliability is built through ordinary promises honored repeatedly, but presence alone is incomplete. Access creates the place where identity can be received. Identity giving means speaking and demonstrating 4 truths. You belong, you possess inherent worth, your choices carry responsibility, and your future contains believable possibility. Listen carefully. The child must not only hear you are mine, the child must experience you matter here, you are accountable here, and you can grow from here. This is why careless labels are dangerous. A failure is an event. It is not a permanent name. A weakness is an area for development. It is not the total definition of a person. Comparison says, become someone else before you deserve acceptance. Insult says, your worst moment reveals your whole identity. Effective fathering refuses that language. It corrects the conduct without imprisoning the child inside the conduct. Now, do not confuse affirmation with flattery. Identity is not the manufacture of superiority. It does not tell a child that ability requires no effort, that wrongdoing deserves no consequence, or that belonging provides exemption from responsibility. Truthful affirmation says, your value is secure, therefore your conduct must rise. It joins dignity to duty, acceptance to accountability, and possibility to practice. Perhaps you are hearing this through the memory of absence. You cannot revise yesterday, but you can take responsibility today. Name the miscommitment, acknowledge the silence. Apologize specifically, without excuses and without demanding immediate trust. Then establish one dependable pattern and keep it. Repair begins when regret becomes observable reliability. Presence says you can reach me. Identity says you belong, you matter, and your life carries responsibility. When those two functions work together, trust gains somewhere to stand. The next question is unavoidable. Now that you have access to the child's life, what will you deliberately teach? Trust makes instruction possible, but trust does not remove the need for teaching. A father cannot claim to have taught a principle merely because he mentioned it once, shouted it during conflict, or demanded obedience without explanation. An angry lecture may release the adult's frustration while leaving the child without understanding. A command may produce temporary compliance without producing judgment. And observation alone is not enough, because a child may see what you do without understanding why you do it. Instruction is the deliberate translation of values into a way of life. It teaches what to do, why it matters, how it looks in practice, and how to evaluate the result. Write this down. Information can be delivered in a moment, but formation requires a cycle. The cycle has 4 movements. First, name the principle. Make it clear enough to remember. Tell the truth. Honor your commitments. Treat people with dignity. Manage resources responsibly. Second, explain its purpose. Why does truthfulness matter? Because trust depends upon reality. Why does work matter? Because responsibility requires effort. A rule without purpose may feel arbitrary. Purpose makes the standard intelligible. Third, demonstrate the principle in conduct and create an opportunity to practice it. Do not teach apology while refusing to admit your own wrong. Do not praise service while expecting everyone to serve you. Let the child see the value under pressure, then allow the child to attempt it in an ordinary situation. Fourth, review the application. Ask, what happened? What choice did you make? What consequence followed? What would wisdom do differently next time? Review turns experience into judgment. Consider a valuable instrument placed into someone's hands. Possession does not automatically produce competent operation. Its instructions explain design, proper use, limits, and care. Responsible guidance then connects those principles to actual conditions. In the same way, a child possesses a life of great worth without automatically understanding how to operate wisely in every circumstance. Instruction interprets enduring principles for changing situations. This applies to truthfulness, work, money, relationships, apology, service, decision-making, and handling pressure. The list is not exhaustive. The method remains the same. Name it, explain it, embody it, revisit it. Teach before the crisis whenever possible. A principle planted in calm moments is easier to recognize when pressure arrives. Now examine the contradiction. What lesson does your conduct teach when your behavior opposes your words? If you demand honesty but practice deception, the behavior becomes the louder lesson. If you teach respect but use humiliation, the child learns that power cancels principle. Your mouth may announce the standard while your habits train the opposite response. Begin with one principle, not 20. Attach it to one conversation each week. Explain its purpose. Model it deliberately. Give the child a chance to practice it. Then return and review the result without ridicule. This is how values become judgment, and judgment becomes conduct. But once a standard has been clearly taught, another question arises: what should happen when that understood standard is ignored or violated? Correction must form character. It must never become permission for an adult to discharge anger. Discipline begins where instruction is resisted. But discipline is not anger with authority attached to it. It is not domination, humiliation, fear, or violence. Discipline is training toward responsible self-government. Its purpose is not merely to stop wrong behavior in the moment. Its purpose is to help the child recognize the standard, accept responsibility, repair what was damaged, and choose more wisely when supervision is absent. Now notice the order. The first person a father must discipline is himself. Before you govern another person's conduct, govern your tone, govern your timing, govern the impulse to exaggerate, threaten, insult, or punish according to your mood. Authority without self-control teaches the child that strength means emotional permission. It does not. Fatherly discipline forms responsibility only when the authority exercising it is itself disciplined. Here is a corrective sequence you can practice. First, clarify the expectation. Was the standard known before the violation, or was it invented after you became angry? Second, Identify the breach. Address the actual conduct without assigning a destructive identity to the child. Third, apply an appropriate consequence. The consequence should be connected to the behavior, proportionate to the seriousness of the breach, and consistent enough to be understood. Fourth, explain the lesson. What responsibility was neglected? Who was affected? What should have happened instead? Fifth, restore the relationship. Correction must not create uncertainty about belonging. Sixth, review future conduct. Ask the child to state what will be done differently when the situation returns. Think of guardrails along a dangerous road. Their purpose is not to prevent travel. They permit movement while keeping a mistake from becoming ruin. In the same way, healthy boundaries do not exist to crush initiative, curiosity, or growth. They mark where freedom becomes danger and where responsibility must govern desire. A boundary that cannot be explained may feel like control. A boundary joined to purpose becomes guidance. So examine your correction. Are expectations known in advance? Are consequences connected to the behavior or selected according to your irritation? Is the response proportionate? Is the same conduct treated consistently, or does everything depend upon your fatigue? Can the child explain the lesson afterward? Can the child see a path back to trust, participation, and restored responsibility? If there is no path back, correction has become rejection. And listen carefully. If you corrected in rage, contempt, or humiliation, the child's wrongdoing does not excuse yours. Repentance must be specific. Say, what you did required correction, but the way I spoke to you was wrong. I used anger and contempt. You did not cause me to lose control. Governing myself was my responsibility. I apologize. Then correct the original breach without defending your own. An apology does not weaken rightful authority. It demonstrates that the standard governs the father also. Discipline is strongest when authority is governed, correction is intelligible, and restoration remains possible. But responsible growth requires more than rules and consequences. If we expect development, we must next ask what time, resources, support, and opportunity a father is responsible to supply. Provision begins with a serious question. What must be responsibly supplied for this child to grow? Not, what can I purchase to display my importance? Not, what possession will make people call me successful? Provision is the disciplined delivery of what supports growth. Money matters. Food, clothing, shelter, health needs, education, transportation, and other necessities require material resources. A father must not use a larger definition of provision to escape financial responsibility. If income is needed, seek lawful work, manage what is received, reduce waste, plan ahead, and contribute faithfully. But listen carefully. Income is one measure of contribution. It is not the entire measure of fatherhood. Money can purchase many things, but it cannot attend a conversation, teach judgment, keep a promise, or create a trustworthy routine by itself. Provision, therefore, includes at least 7 categories. First, necessities that preserve health and stability. Second, time that allows relationship and guidance. Third, attention that recognizes changes, questions, strengths, and struggles. Fourth, knowledge that helps the child understand life and responsibility. Fifth, access to helpful people whose character and competence can strengthen development. Sixth, stable routines that make daily life understandable. Seventh, useful opportunities to practice, learn, serve, create, recover from mistakes, and develop ability. Think of a supply line. Resources may exist in storage, but the need is not served until the supply reaches the required place at the required time. Possession is not delivery. You may possess wisdom, but if you never explain it, the child remains without guidance. You may control a schedule, but if no dependable time reaches the relationship, the child still experiences absence. You may know responsible people, but if you never create appropriate access, that support remains elsewhere. Now confront 2 evasions. The first says, I provide gifts, therefore my absence should not matter. But a gift cannot perform the function of presence. Possessions offered as compensation may entertain the child while leaving the deeper need untouched. The second evasion says, my finances are limited, therefore I have nothing to provide. That is also false. Limited money is a real constraint, not a total exemption from attention, instruction, encouragement, routine, advocacy, planning, and responsible partnership. Conduct an honest audit. What necessities can I supply now? What time can I schedule and protect? What knowledge can I teach? Which routine needs stability? What opportunity can I create with what is already available? What requires saving, training, or better management? Where should I seek assistance from trustworthy relatives, mentors, educators, caregivers, or community support without surrendering my responsibility? Do not be ashamed of needing partnership. Be accountable for seeking it wisely. Do not perform importance. Deliver value. When resources are limited, resourcefulness becomes part of stewardship. When resources are abundant, restraint and direction become part of stewardship. And once we ask what must enter a child's environment to support growth, we must ask the companion question: what must be prevented from entering, corrupting, exploiting, or destabilizing that environment? Provision supplies what development needs. Protection governs what development must not be forced to endure. Protection is not the attempt to eliminate every uncertainty from a child's life. Protection is the responsible recognition of credible danger, the establishment of understandable boundaries, the maintenance of approachable relationship, and the willingness to respond wisely when trouble appears. It neither ignores danger nor worships fear. Fatherly protection guards development without imprisoning the person being developed. Think of a watchful gate. A gate distinguishes what may enter, what must remain outside, when movement is appropriate, and when access must be denied. But a gate that never opens has ceased to serve healthy movement. It has become confinement. The purpose of protection is not to make the father permanently necessary for every decision. It is to create enough safety for wisdom, strength, and judgment to grow. Now turn the safety audit inward. A father cannot call the home protected while his own anger makes everyone afraid to speak. He cannot condemn outside contempt while using humiliation inside. Intimidation, secrecy, threats, emotional instability, and broken promises do not become safe because the adult claims good intentions. Listen carefully. Protective authority must never become one of the dangers from which the child needs protection. This function applies across ordinary life. What environments does the child enter? Which relationships encourage health? And which exploit weakness or normalize destructive conduct? What media and digital access are shaping attention, desire, language, and judgment? Which situations place the child near danger without adequate guidance? And when something disturbing occurs, can the child report it without being immediately mocked, blamed, interrogated, or shamed? Approachability is part of protection because hidden trouble cannot be addressed responsibly. Now test every boundary with 4 questions. Can I explain it? Is it proportionate to the credible risk? Is it applied consistently rather than according to panic or mood? Is it directed toward eventual maturity? A boundary without explanation may produce secrecy. A response larger than the danger may produce fear. A rule that changes with emotion may produce confusion. A restriction with no path toward greater responsibility may produce dependence. Use this protective review. First, identify one vulnerability clearly: an unsafe setting, a troubling relationship, unrestricted access, a pattern of secrecy, or a condition the child cannot yet manage alone. Second, explain the relevant boundary and the danger it addresses. Third, establish a reporting path. Whom should the child contact? What should be said? And what response can be expected? Fourth, decide when the boundary will be reviewed. As judgment and reliability increase, freedom should be reconsidered responsibly. Protection is trustworthy vigilance that creates safety and prepares freedom. Control seeks power and produces dependence. You cannot remove every risk, stand at every doorway, or supervise every future choice. Therefore, the final question is not merely, is the child guarded while I am present? It is this child becoming capable of recognizing danger, exercising judgment, and carrying responsibility when I am not there? That question carries us from present safety to future readiness. Protection and provision remain incomplete if the child is never entrusted with judgment, skill, and meaningful responsibility. Preparation is the deliberate equipping of a developing person to make responsible decisions, recover from mistakes, serve others, and carry duties without constant supervision. The goal of fathering is not to remain indispensable. The goal is to transfer the capacity for responsible living. Write down this sequence. First, demonstrate the task. Let the child see what responsible conduct requires. Second, perform it together. Explain the decisions, allow questions, and share the weight. Third, observe the child performing it. Do not seize control at the first imperfection. Watch, correct, and review. Fourth, release appropriate ownership while remaining available. Responsibility must increase as competence becomes visible. Availability remains, but control decreases. Apply this process to ordinary life. Demonstrate how work is completed when enthusiasm fades. Practice planning and managing money together. Allow the child to address a conflict, honor a commitment, serve another person, solve a manageable problem, offer a sincere apology, and seek wise help before a difficulty becomes a crisis. Preparation does not mean abandoning a child to consequences beyond present capacity. It means assigning enough real responsibility for judgment to develop. Think of a relay. One runner may move with strength, speed, and discipline, but the work is not complete until what must continue has been placed securely into the next runner's hand. A generation has not fulfilled its responsibility merely because it survived, achieved, or accumulated. It must transfer wisdom, habits, standards, skills, and the courage to act responsibly beyond its immediate reach. What is never transferred may disappear when the runner leaves the course. Now let me answer the person who says, "But no one prepared me." Your missing model explains a disadvantage. It does not establish a permanent sentence. Study these functions. Seek trustworthy mentors who demonstrate what you need to learn. Practice one behavior at a time. Invite honest feedback. When you fail, acknowledge the failure. Repair what you damaged, adjust the method, and repeat the process. Competence grows through disciplined practice, not through pretending you already know. With the full framework visible, build a 7-function dashboard using conduct, not intention. Presence. Am I dependably available? Identity. Do my words join belonging with responsibility? Instruction. Do I explain, model, practice, and review? Discipline. Are standards clear, consequences proportionate, and restoration possible? Provision. Do needed resources actually reach development? Protection. Do my boundaries create safety while preparing freedom? Preparation. Am I transferring skill, judgment, service, and ownership? Identify one current strength without pride. Identify one neglected function without hiding in shame. Then choose one next action that can be observed and scheduled. The audit is not complete when you feel convicted. It is complete when responsibility becomes conduct. One final question remains. What will you write? What will you say? And what will you begin doing immediately so the next generation can witness a different pattern? Now answer the final question. When a child needs guidance, instruction must appear. When a boundary is crossed, discipline must respond. When failure produces shame, presence and identity must restore belonging without removing responsibility. When resources are needed, provision must deliver them. When danger approaches, protection must act. When maturity requires practice, preparation must transfer responsibility. I will do better is too vague. Name the function, schedule the conduct. Let the child witness the change. You may need to grieve what you did not receive. Grieve the conversation that never happened, the affirmation never spoken, the protection never provided, the wisdom never transferred. Grief tells the truth about the wound, but grief must not surrender authority to the wound. Your history may explain why responsibility feels unfamiliar. It cannot excuse repeating what damaged you. Ask one decisive question. What must not continue through me? Write a 7-line covenant. Date it. Make every line observable and attach each commitment to a realistic time or recurring rhythm. For presence, write when dependable attention will occur. For identity, write how often you will speak belonging, worth, responsibility, and possibility. For instruction, name the principle you will teach and review. For discipline, state how you will govern yourself. Clarify standards, and restore relationship. For provision, identify what resource, routine, knowledge, or opportunity you will deliver. For protection, name the vulnerability you will address and when the boundary will be reviewed. For preparation, choose the responsibility you will demonstrate, practice together, observe, and gradually release. A covenant without a rhythm becomes an intention. A covenant with witness conduct becomes a pattern. Where neglect has injured relationship, repair it. Name the responsibility you neglected. Do not hide behind fatigue, ignorance, pressure, or your own childhood. Apologize without self-defense. State the new commitment clearly, then invite accountability. You may ask me whether I am keeping this. Trust may not return when the apology is spoken. Give it evidence. Let consistency answer what words alone cannot settle. Biological fathers accept the office by performing its responsibilities. Prospective fathers prepare before the title arrives. Learn the functions now. Mentors and other responsible adults serve faithfully without making false claims about the place you occupy. Wounded adults, you may not control what entered your story, but you can decide which destructive cycle will not leave your hands. Now say this personally. I will be present. I will speak identity with truth and responsibility. I will teach what is right and model what I teach. I will correct with clarity and self-control. I will supply what supports growth. I will guard wisely without producing dependence. I will prepare others to carry responsibility with courage. This is how a broken inheritance loses its power to repeat itself. Responsibility is accepted, practiced, reviewed, repaired, and transferred. Sign the covenant. Schedule the first conversation. Begin the first responsibility today.